Have you ever stood next to a grizzly bear on its hind legs? Lady Dimitrescu is a foot taller than that. At 9'6", she represents an apex predator that human biology isn't designed to fight. But the biggest problem isn't her height. It's your physiology. You aren't Ethan Winters. You don't have magical mold powers that reattach severed limbs. You are you, with your current cardio and pain tolerance. Today, we're running a realistic survival simulation. We'll calculate thermal limits, acoustic physics, and biomechanics to see if escape is statistically possible. Let's start the clock. Stage 1. The Dungeon Awakening and the Physiology of Pain. You wake up in the dark. The air smells like stagnant water and rusted iron. You're in the dungeon, and if we follow the castle's modus operandi, you aren't lying on a floor. You're suspended. The Samka creatures in the lore hang their victims by the hands, often driving hooks through the flesh. This is your first filter. In the game, Ethan rips his hands off these hooks with a grunt. In reality, this is a catastrophic injury. The tensile strength of human skin is impressive, but your hand is a complex machine of 27 bones and delicate ligaments. If you apply your full body weight, let's average that at 75 kilograms, against a rusty iron spike, you aren't just tearing skin. You're crushing the carpal tunnel and likely severing the flexor tendons that allow you to grip. If you rip free like an action hero, you might hit the floor, but you've just destroyed your ability to open doors or climb ladders. Let's assume you manage to drop without degloving your hands. Your body immediately enters a sympathetic nervous system response, fight or flight. Your hypothalamus floods your system with adrenaline and cortisol. For the next 15 minutes, you are superhuman. You won't feel the holes in your hands, and your strength will spike. But this is a loan, not a gift. Once that adrenaline fades, the crash will leave you trembling, nauseous, and weak. You have a very short window to move. You look at the long stone corridor. Your instinct is to run. That is a death sentence. The dungeon is constructed of hewn stone and mortar. In acoustic physics, hard, heavy materials have a sound absorption coefficient of nearly 0. They don't absorb sound, they reflect it. A panicked sprint in boots generates about 80 decibels of impact noise. In a resonant stone tube, those sound waves bounce and amplify, traveling hundreds of feet like a dinner bell. You cannot run. You have to move at a pace that keeps your heart rate below the panic threshold, placing your feet deliberately to dampen the impact. The smart play isn't speed, it's efficiency. You need to crawl or crouch walk, minimizing your silhouette and your caloric burn. Here is your first tactical decision. You are restrained. Do you try to brute force the hooks immediately while your adrenaline's high, risking permanent hand damage? Or do you hang there, conserving energy and waiting for a potential patrol gap, risking that something comes back to finish the job? Leave a comment with your choice. Let's say you choose the pain. You drop to the cold stone, blood dripping from your palms. You stifle a scream, effectively invisible to the ears in the castle above, until you aren't. Above you, the ceiling dust shakes. Heavy rhythmic thuds vibrate through the floorboards. Something massive is walking in the main hall, and it knows you're awake. Stage 2. The main hall and the biomechanics of a giant. You creep up the cellar stairs and emerge into the main hall. It is opulent, massive, and currently occupied by Lady Dimitrescu. Capcom officially lists her height at 9 feet 6 inches. To put that in perspective, she is significantly taller than Robert Wadlow, the tallest human in recorded history. This isn't just an aesthetic design choice. It is a mathematical nightmare for your escape attempt. Let's break down the biomechanics of a giant. An average human male has a walking stride of about 30 inches. Based on her skeletal proportions, Lady Dimitrescu's stride is likely closer to 70 inches. Every single step she takes covers nearly 6 feet of ground. This creates a terrifying velocity equation. You have to jog just to match her casual walking pace. If you try to sprint, you're burning your limited anaerobic battery while she is simply strolling. However, physics gives you one small advantage here, the square cube law. As an organism scales up in size, its volume, and therefore its mass, cubes, while its cross-sectional muscle area only squares. She is incredibly heavy. This means her inertia is massive. She cannot accelerate or change direction quickly. Like a freight train, she takes time to build up speed. But once she has momentum, she's nearly impossible to stop. If she catches you in a straight line, you're dead. But if you keep turning corners, you force her to constantly decelerate and recelerate. Your instinct in the game is to hide. You see a wardrobe or a large vase and think, I'll just crouch here until she leaves. In a video game, enemies lack object permanence. In reality, hiding in a box is a trap. Remember those holes in your hands from the dungeon? You are bleeding. You smell like copper and sweat. Even if she doesn't have heightened vampiric senses, a predator in a closed ecosystem notices new scents. Furthermore, if she saw you enter a hallway with no other exits, she knows you're in the furniture. Hiding turns you into a boxed lunch. You have to keep moving. So, how do you survive a chase with a biological tank? You use architecture. The Castle Dimitrescu is an old European fortress, likely built centuries ago when people were shorter. While the main hall is grand, the service corridors and spiral staircases are not. This is your only tactical edge. A 9'6" humanoid cannot navigate a tight spiral staircase effectively. You sprint for the narrowest doorway you can find. You scramble up the stairs. You are running up steep stone steps, injured on an empty stomach. Under extreme stress, you'll hit your lactate threshold within seconds. Your legs will start to burn as lactic acid floods the muscles. You hear her growl in frustration below you. She can't fit through the archway without squeezing. You've bought yourself time. You stumble onto the upper balcony, gasping for air, your heart hammering against your ribs. You've put distance between you and the lady, but as you move away from the central fireplace, you notice something else. The air isn't just cool anymore, it's freezing, and you can hear the buzzing of wings. Stage 3. The daughters, thermodynamics, and cold exposure. You hear the laugh before you see them. The air fills with the sound of 1,000 tiny wings. Bella, Cassandra, and Daniela appear, blocking your path. In the game lore, these are vampires, but scientifically, we need to treat them as a biological swarm intelligence. They are colonies of mutant blowflies mimicking human form. This distinction is critical because you cannot fight a swarm with a knife or a handgun. You can't stab a cloud of flies. You have to attack their biology. Insects are poikilothermic, or cold-blooded. Their metabolic rate, reaction speed, and ability to fly are entirely dependent on the heat of the room. This is why the game's mechanic of breaking windows to weaken them is actually grounded in solid science. But doing so creates a new, equally deadly problem for you. You're in a stone castle in the Romanian mountains. The outside temperature is likely hovering around -10 degrees Celsius. Inside, thanks to the fireplaces, it might be a comfortable 18 degrees. But when you shatter a large Gothic window, you aren't just letting in a breeze, you're triggering a violent equalization of pressure and temperature. According to Newton's law of cooling, the rate of heat loss is proportional to the difference in temperatures between the object and its surroundings. With a massive hole in the wall and a mountain gale blowing in, the room doesn't cool down gradually. It flash freezes. For the daughters, this is catastrophic. As the air temp drops, their hemolymph, insect blood, thickens. Their enzymes stop catalyzing reactions. They enter a state of torpor, a temporary hibernation where they can barely move, let alone fly. The swarm loses cohesion, and they solidify into a physical form you can actually hurt. But here is the variable the game ignores. You're an average human, likely wearing a flannel shirt and jeans, not Arctic survival gear. When that sub-zero wind hits wet skin, evaporation strips heat from your body 25 times faster than air alone. You don't just feel cold. You enter the initial stages of hypothermia within minutes. Your body's immediate defense mechanism is intense vasoconstriction. To protect your vital organs, your brain commands the blood vessels in your extremities to clamp shut. Remember those hands you ripped off the hooks in the dungeon? They're already traumatized. Now, the cold is slowing the nerve conduction velocity in your arms. You lose the ability to perform a pincer grasp or manipulate small objects. This is terrifying because Resident Evil castles are essentially giant, complex puzzle boxes. To escape this room, you don't just need to run. You need to turn a small key, align a stone crest, or pick a lock. If you break that window to freeze the witch, you're also freezing your hands into useless claws. You might neutralize the threat, only to find you physically cannot turn the doorknob to leave. This forces a brutal strategic trade-off. Do you keep the window intact and try to dodge a swarm that moves faster than human reflexes allow? Or do you break the glass, paralyzing the predator, but putting yourself on a strict biological timer before your hands stop working entirely? Let's assume you choose the cold. You smash the pane with a chair. The wind howls and the daughter screams as she calcifies into a solid mass. You scramble past her frozen form. You fumble with the latch on the far door. It takes 3 tries because you can't feel the metal against your skin, but you manage to shoulder it open. You stumble into the corridor, away from the draft. You're alive, but your core temperature has dropped. Your energy reserves are critically low, and your hands are numb. And unfortunately, the only path that leads away from the pursuit doesn't go down to the exit, it goes up to the roof. Stage 4, the tower climb and terminal velocity. You kick open the attic hatch and scramble onto the roof. The environment has shifted from a stealth horror game to a mountaineering nightmare. You are now exposed to the full force of mountain winds. The roof is covered in slate tiles, which are slippery enough when dry. You aren't walking. You are balancing on a knife's edge. Remember your hands, the ones with the torn ligaments from the dungeon? To navigate these spires, you need to grip frozen stone ledges and pull your body weight up. With the damage to your flexor tendons and the onset of frostbite, your grip strength is practically non-existent. You are effectively trying to free solo a skyscraper in a blizzard with crippled hands. One slip and gravity finishes the job the lady started. Then the final variable enters, the mutation. Later, Dimitrescu sheds her human guise and erupts into her final form. Biologically, this transformation is a thermodynamic impossibility. To expand from a 300-pound humanoid to a multi-ton chimera in seconds would require a metabolic reaction indistinguishable from a bomb. But the real savior here is structural engineering. The castle was built for humans, not kaiju. A limestone spire has a specific compressive strength. When a creature weighing as much as a city bus perches on a decorative Gothic finial, physics takes over. The stone wouldn't just crack. It would shear completely due to the massive point load. In a realistic simulation, the boss fight ends early because the architecture collapses under her weight, sending her plummeting through the roof. However, assuming the masonry magically holds, you're trapped. You cannot fight this. The game wants you to use the dagger of death's flowers to slay the beast. Let's be real, trying to melee a thrashing, house-sized biological weapon with a knife is suicide. You have the reach of a toddler fighting a T-Rex. Your only option is to flee. You have to jump to a lower tier or a zip line. Movies have lied to you about the hero landing. If you drop just 4 meters, about 13 feet, you hit the ground at nearly 20 miles per hour. With a perfect roll to disperse the kinetic energy, your tibia and fibula absorb the impact. Your bones snap like dry chalk. You aren't walking away, you're crawling. But let's assume you find a deep snowdrift to break the fall. You slide down the slate, friction burning through your jeans, and hit the ground outside the gate. You limp into the mist, leaving the nightmare behind. The survival verdict. You are alive, but let's assess the damage. You likely have second-degree frostbite on your fingers. You have torn ligaments in your hands from the dungeon hooks. Your ankles are sprained or fractured from the descent. You are in a severe caloric deficit and suffering from hypothermic shock. Is escape possible? Yes, the physics allow for it, but the margin for error is less than 1%. One slip in the dungeon, one wrong turn in the hall, or 1 second of hesitation with the window, and you're dead. So, be honest, which room of the castle would have actually ended your run? The hooks, the cold, or the drop? Let us know in the comments. Subscribe for more survival science.